Welcome to the SWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Right, so welcome everyone to another episode of the SWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. Today we have a special edition where we're introducing another co-host for our Youth Corner. And this is one where we're bringing a student, Kelly Yang, and she'll give a bit of her introduction. And I'd love for her to share a little bit about her background, what she was like as a kid, some of the influences that she had kind of growing up, and really like how she got to her degree and how she decided to choose it, so that folks get an understanding. And then hopefully she'll join us for future weeks to talk about different things that her and her age demographic normally chat about in terms of stuff that they wish they knew earlier. So Kelly, if you don't mind doing the honors.
Yeah, thank you, Luki. So currently I'm a Rotman Commerce student at the University of Toronto, and I'm just finishing up my last semester. But I didn't always know I wanted to go into business. So I'll start with a little bit of background. I immigrated to Canada when I was 3 with my parents and grew up in small towns across Canada. I was in Saskatoon for a while. Majority of my childhood was spent in Thunder Bay, and then my parents moved to Sudbury when I went to university. During my childhood, I was involved in so many different activities and sports. My parents were very big proponents of trying to get me involved in as many things as possible. So I did all your typical things like played piano, play violin, took art lessons. I also did my fair share of sports. I played soccer, I played volleyball, I did gymnastics, skating, dance, and a few others as well.
And
But
did you have
because I did,
siblings growing up as well, or was it just you?
yeah, so I had a younger sister. She's about 5 years younger. And I spent a lot of time with her as well because we got along fairly well. We had a lot of the same interests and we played a lot of the same sports.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So even though it was great that I got to experience so many different things, I felt almost a little bit lost in that I wasn't sure exactly what I liked most, what I didn't like most. And I felt like just a routine that I was going through over and over again. And in terms of what I wanted to do for university, it was a little bit of the same story. So everyone around me was going into STEM. My parents highly recommended that I also follow in my friends' paths and pursue a career in STEM. And all my teachers and guidance counselors recommended that I also follow that path. And so all throughout high school, I did a lot of science related activities. I did science fairs, science projects, took a lot of science courses. But I just felt like something was missing. And I really like social interaction and being able to talk to people. So on a whim, I decided maybe business would be something that could marry the two things I liked.
But
So
did
from
you did you like the science courses? Were they something that you enjoyed, but you decided there's something else, or was it really that, you know what, this definitely isn't for me? Because I know a lot of folks out there is like, yeah, they're good, whatever they're the best at, right? So they get an A's in either in business or science or tech or whatever. That's the degree that they pursue. So you're uh, were you good at the subjects? Did you enjoy doing it? And then how, what was like the feeling of this like on a whim, let's go try business. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I did enjoy science. I liked it a lot. I really like learning about new concepts, doing my own experiments, trying to come up with some new experiments and new results. I feel like I enjoyed all my courses except for history, to be honest.
Mm.
But the feeling that was missing was more so when I worked in a lab doing research. A lot of it was just me on my own. So even though I liked the work and I liked everything that went into it, I just wanted more teamwork if I were to pursue something as a career. And although I didn't know too much about business, at the time I thought, oh, business, you still get to create new things. Because for me, I thought business was all about entrepreneurship.
Mm.
So I still got to create things, I still got to tinker around and try to build something. But at the same time, I'd also get to work in a team atmosphere more often. So that's why I started to think that business might be a better path for me.
So when you're thinking business, what comes to mind? Because a lot of folks like in high school, I think most of the business courses are, well, there's accounting, right? I don't think they have like finance courses or economics. Well, maybe they have an economics course or something like that. But a lot of the early exposure is really accounting to business. And then you mentioned entrepreneurship. So what are some of the other aspects of business? Because a lot of people say, yeah, I'm specializing and I'm choosing business, but business is huge. Right? There's a whole bunch of different things to get into. So what were some of the things that you thought of, and then how did you kind of explore and get more into kind of business?
Yeah, so I was a bit unlucky. My school didn't actually offer any business courses
Okay.
as part of the IB program. So for me, I thought business was just entrepreneurship or working at a bank.
Okay.
And I actually didn't really understand that business comes in so many different forms. You have finance, accounting, management. The list really goes on. But I didn't know all of that at the time. So I just thought, okay, business means you start your own business or you work for someone else's business. And that's all business.
And well, this kind of points to you being a little bit of like a risk taker, because I mean, if you've never taken a business course and you kind of went through like STEM programs and all that sort of stuff, and then say, yeah, on a whim, let me apply to business school, right? Were you always like that as a kid? Were you always want to try like the new and different things, or were you a little bit more like conservative or risk mitigated or something like? How was that? How does all of that or your upbringing and influences kind of factor into your decision?
Yeah, I think as a kid, I was definitely very risk averse. I
Okay.
didn't like to take risks. I just went with the flow, did what my parents suggested or what my friends were doing, and try to stay safe. I think the choice of doing business was probably the first big risky decision I made. But because it worked out for me and I really enjoy business, I think learning from that experience, I've become much more of a risk taker in terms of not only things to do with school and work, but also my personal interests as
Well,
well.
I'm even more curious now, because if this was like the first case, then can you like, I don't know if you can bring us back to the time when you had to make that decision to say, you know what, you were always kind of risk averse, conservative, listen to mom and dad and do all that sort of stuff. Now you make this huge decision, which at kind of your age is kind of the biggest decision you can make. And it's kind of the riskiest decision that you could go through. Like how did in your head, like how did you kind of rationalize it? How did you even convince your parents right, that that was a good thing to do? Or like, if you can walk us through that, I think that would be helpful for a lot of folks that are listening.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I was kind of just stuck between doing business or science. So I think I laid out what I liked in each aspect. So I wrote down the things I liked about science and I wrote down the things I liked about business. And then from there, I was able to see what also matched my personality a little bit better. So the things I was looking for in a job and how well it would match up to either science or business. And then in the end, I felt that business was a better fit for me, and I just really wanted to try something new, something that I maybe didn't know, maybe step outside of my comfort zone as well. And as for convincing my parents, I think I'm fairly lucky. They're fairly supportive. So when I brought up that I wanted to do business, the first thing they said, I remember this very clearly, was, "Oh, you want to be a bank teller?" And I thought, well, I'm sure there's other jobs besides being bank tellers in business. And they're like, yeah, yeah, I'm sure there are, but just make sure that this is what you really want. If it is, then obviously we'll support you. And so they actually drove me around Ontario um, and Montreal to visit some business schools so I could get a better sense of business before I made that choice.
Cool.
And yeah, I know it's not feasible for everyone to do, but if you are trying to make a choice, I recommend maybe doing some virtual tours or talking to people in different programs. That really helped me, especially because I didn't really know what business was. But after I was able to do some site visits, talk to some people, I had a better sense of how the business program actually worked.
So when you were talking to folks in different programs, what are some of the, I guess, most insightful questions or responses that you got from it, and that you definitely recommend folks to ask? And are there things that you wish you asked other people as well before you even got into it? So if you could go back and say, hey, here's a whole survey of questions to fill in, what are some of the things that you'd recommend folks to ask?
Yeah, so I think it's important to ask why they decided to choose the program they did. Because for me, I was teetering between that decision. So hearing other people's stories helped a lot. I would also ask them what the career opportunities are in the program. what they like about the program, but also ask what they don't like or
Mhm.
what they wish they could change. Because sometimes when you ask that, you get a lot more insights than if you just say, oh, tell me the best part about being in science, or tell me the best part about being in engineering.
Cool. So you get some insights, and your parents have taken you around to a bunch of schools around Ontario. What was kind of the decision process? Because I think when we chatted, you mentioned that you got into a couple of programs. So what was the decision making process in order to decide, okay, I'm definitely going to U of T Rotman?
Yeah, I was also on the fence about the choice of university as well. I was teetering between Rotman Queens or Ivy at Western. And for me, I knew I really wanted to live in a big city because I'd grown up in a small town all of my life. So that was probably the biggest factor of choosing Rotman Commerce. But at the same time, I did look into the programs. I did speak to coordinators and professors and directors at all of the universities. And for me, I felt like Rotman was a good fit. There's a lot of like-minded people there. They were very welcoming. And just being on campus was really invigorating because it's literally in the middle of Toronto, with all of your financial district right nearby. So I think for me, I was just enamored by all of that.
Cool. So what I took from that is when you're making your decision, kind of figure out what your priorities are, right? So your biggest priority was kind of big city, right? And then everything else kind of supported. So you obviously had discussions with the staff, faculty, students, and things like that. And all those things weighed into your decision. But at the same time, whenever there's kind of a big um, emphasis or big weight on a particular one, that tends to win out, right? So
Yeah.
cool. So you've gone through and you picked Rotman, and then what was the lead up until, I guess, your first year? So after you get in, and maybe in the next episode we'll get into kind of the start of your first year. But what are some of the things that you did like before graduating from high school, like after making the decision and kind of finalizing that, and over the course of the summer and stuff? What are some of the things that you did to help prepare or not prepare and just relax? Like what did you end up doing over the summer?
Yeah. So after I accepted my offer to Rotman, it hit me that I signed up for a business program and I didn't know the first thing about business. So during the summer between high school and university, I actually started my own company, just to learn a little bit more about entrepreneurship. And I was part of this summer company program. I believe it still exists now, and
Oh,
I think it's a really great program. I encourage you all to apply if you're interested. And so through the program, I was able to have a little startup based on something I was interested in, which was art. And I created custom greeting cards that I sold to various businesses and the public. And by doing that, even though I didn't learn too much about business fundamentals, I did get a sense of what entrepreneurship was like. And I gained some basic skills into accounting, business planning, networking, and things like that. So, uh, in terms of helpfulness, I would say it was probably just a little bit helpful. But in terms of how fun it was really a lot of fun. And it helped reinforce that my decision was the right one.
what I took from that is, I mean, if you're going to something unknown, then do a little bit preparation first, so whatever preparation you can. And even though if it's not exactly what it is, at least have fun in the process, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. And when you were researching those opportunities, like, and then you mentioned entrepreneurship. So did you literally go to Google and say like, how do I learn entrepreneurship? Is that kind of how you found Summer Company, or what was your process to kind of finding that program and enrolling into that?
Um, if I can remember correctly, I think I actually heard from a friend who was in summer company a year prior, and they said they had a lot of fun doing it. They learned a lot, so that's how I got involved. But I'm sure if you were to research how learning more about business or how to start a company, there would be a ton of resources online as well.
It's cool. So it sounds like you had a kind of the inside track for someone who, well, given that your idea of business was just entrepreneurship, someone who had done it before in the past, then that seemed like an obvious choice. But yeah, so I think that's great. I think that gives folks a good perspective in terms of like background, some influences and stuff like that. And I think I'll enjoy getting to more questions and kind of and different topics in future episodes. So thanks, Kelly, for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, Lukey. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Lukidanu, Lukidanu, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.